Lovely. So those who have been last evening with the same session, you understand what we are talking about. We are talking about design. Those who are joining for the first time, welcome. Welcome for your time and listening. So today, apart from all the sessions that we are having, we are talking a lot about technology. We are talking a lot about how to use them, implementing them. This session is different. Okay. Is it better? Okay, thank you. So this session is more about how do you think using technology? How do you think building a data pipeline, and how do you construct the end-to-end understanding of that? The session is for everyone, irrespective of your technical expertise, and we'll be digging a little deeper on what we can do based on the organizational level to your individual needs. I'm Sayantika. I'm a founder of Data Journey Headquarters, where we build personalized data toolkits for small and medium-sized enterprises and non-technical founders. The more about you can, if you have the slides, you can click and understand what the organization does. So today's agenda, pretty much very intuitive. We will understand what are the ingredients that one should think and keep in mind while designing such systems. The second, of course, design itself. We are going to talk about design. Open source as a medium. We are talking about not at its core, but how open source facilitates designing and building these toolkits. A short demo of Data Journey if the screen sharing, everything goes well, but we have 15 minutes, so I might skip that. And finally, we'll stitch all these together in the form of takeaways. Wow, this video is working. So this is a simple interpretation, like when you are cooking a dish, you measure how much of these raw ingredients should go into your dish. You don't take a ton of potatoes and just smush it in there. A ton of garlic, just push it in there. What I mean by this interpretation is we have to quantify and qualitatively understand what are our needs, what are our goals, and how these come together in certain quantities so that we can make a delicious dish at the end of the day, which is cooked right to the perfect temperature, is presentable at the end, and it's usable, it's accessible to your users and your audience. It doesn't matter how beautiful your tool is, how amazing the back end is, how complicated the stuff you're building. If it's not usable by your users, nothing makes sense. May as well scrape it. So what's the problem that we have it here? And each year, each month, honestly, this list keeps on growing. What to use, when to use, how to use, why to use. Do we ask these questions often? Maybe not. How do we come to a conclusion that what tools needs to be used or what is giving the finest outcome out there? Most of the time, it's the experts on the team, or if you have something already pre-built as a pipeline in your organization, you just go and roll with it. But never thinking right from the understanding, like, do I need an entire Databricks system in my organization, or I can just get away with a small query engine? What are those decision parameters that involves taking and making those tiny tweaks in your pipelines? Okay, one slide back. So the solution is design first thinking. As much as this sounds boring, like why the hell she's talking about design, it's the fundamental core. It's like talking about concepts, algorithms, before we talked about building programs. The same is for today. To understand tools and what not to use and what to use at the end of the day, we have to play the elimination game, and hence, design first thinking is a step forward towards that. What is design? Everything starts with curating a mental model. What is a mental model? Is asking those questions to your C-suites, to your team members, to understanding those hard questions which nobody wants to ask. Why exactly we need this? Because it's in our budget. That's a fairly good answer. But why cannot we use instead of this, which is giving us better results, better efficiency? The team just understands it perfectly how to use that. The next is left shift thinking. Left shift thinking is there for centuries is an exaggeration, but at least couple of decades. What it means is instead of implementation, we design, we think first. And as we design and as we think, the solution improves in the initial stages itself, so that we don't have to worry for the final outcome and not having to tweak and incorporate lots of resources in that. Finally, goals to technology. We'll dig a little more about what these means. Needs to implementation framework. Again, we are talking on the organizational level and not on the technological level. How do we understand what are the needs, what are the goals? And I would love that if we are interactive in this particular slide, what do you understand by a need? And please feel free to just brace up and answer this one. And it doesn't have to be a perfect answer or anything. I just want to understand what is your mental model of a need looks like when you're developing a project or we're developing a product or you're inputting your understanding to the team. Anyone? Please go ahead. Lovely. That's a interpretation at the level of action input, what a need might feel like. A need is unbounded, one word. When we go to the goal, it's bounded. What is bounded and unbounded? Bounded comes with boundaries with respect to what's your budget, it's a bounded entity. What is your resource capacity of your team? It's a bounded entity. What is the need? I want the best product out there in the market. I don't know how to do it, where to do it, I don't care, but that's my need. The goals are more refined and structured in that manner. Finally, we understand the gaps. Though they are interesting goals, but how about the gaps? Now your resource team is crunched. You have only 2 developers to reach to that goal. And those gaps also come back to the goals, and the goals and the gaps refine itself until we reach a consensus that this is what we can do. After all the 3 parameters working together, we finally reach to the step of resource and tool allocation. We don't talk about the tooling until we have our goals sorted, until we understand what our major gaps look like. After that, we do documentation, implementation, testing and learning. Business values are more on the understanding, like I want 15% increase in my revenue this quarter, that's my business value, and this feeds to the goal again. So business value and goals are connected with the gaps in there. And this model gives you an overview, be it you're an individual developer, be you're running your own business, be it that you're starting up as a side project. Understanding the mental model of how the decision matrix work will make you a more efficient developer, will make you a more efficient decision maker. And hence, it is important to think outside of the system and think more on the design philosophy than on the tooling philosophy. These are the buzzwords. After we understand what the design feels like, this becomes easier to look into. This becomes more understandable. Why scalability? Why maintainability? Why is abstraction important? Is my user a technical user, non-technical user? How should my abstraction look like? Will a CLI just do the job, or do I have to do something more? These kind of questions only arise when we think about design, when we put ourselves in the shoes of the users, and empathy is the key word to understand that. We talked a little bit about left shift thinking, but then there is interesting, which is much more efficient, is incremental left shift design. So left shift design says that do all the research, all the pre-work right in the beginning, and then start developing. What incremental left shift design tells you is to do a part of it. Like 20% of the 100 part of the research is done in the first iteration. Then you think about implementation. Don't do the implementation. Think about the implementation, how the testing looks like, how the features look like. And in the next iteration, you are left with 80% of the research. Now again, pick 30% from that 80%. So it's part incremental left shift thinking. And once you implement that, not only you will have something to show to your CXOs or your business suites, but also produce results that are more efficient. Left shift design failed in many cases because of the sprint analysis, because of the time constraint. And now when you have something as incremental left shift design, you have quantitative numbers to showcase to your respective stakeholders, and that gives you time and accuracy to build something design first. Definitely I had to add something with respect to AI, because how my talk would get accepted if I don't add something AI. So AI is AI is important. The AI has gone deep into our day-to-day lives. And how do we design in the age of AI? What should we keep in mind? Should we shove the LLMs inside and think about doing a prompt analysis, or we think more or deeper? These are the questions to be asked. And not every day is an exaggeration, but pretty much all day, I look at this guide which tells you what are the design principles and methods in the age of AI, in the age of 21st, if we are still, 21st century. It talks about, these are the two of my favorites, is I'll go from bottom to up, is design enhances human ability without replacing the humans themselves. Let's take 2 seconds to dig deeper. All we are thinking is, how can we replace ourselves with respect to AI? How can I cut down my resources? How can I hire less? All these things is what we are thinking, and that's exactly replacing the human. Your systems are not incorporating the real crux of it is built for the people, by the people, and we have to understand that. The second is, good design brings in long-term relationship without creating an emotional dependency. Quick example here, I love my Spotify like list. Anything I come across, I just put a like and it goes to a nice list. One fine day, if I wake up and see that list is gone, I'll cry. I'll cry my heart out, because that's one feature that I really, really want to have every single day, and look at it and see what my list looks like. So there I created an emotional dependency for myself, though it's a long-term relationship. A good design, if there are changes to that feature, should eliminate the possibility of psychological, I think the word is psychological mismatch, or design philosophy should remain the same without adding extra layers to the top. So make sure you enable your users to now navigate with or without that feature. If there's a strong dependencies on that feature, the design should be in such a way that it could increase, it could decrease, it could stretch, and all those things should be thought about before eliminating that feature out itself. A good tech and design is discrete. This is the fundamental when I came up, is how AI and the existing core principles should go hand in hand and together. Instead of AI being the core, let's think it as an abstraction, a layer on top of your existing systems and sources. And what it does that, it increases your probability and chances to get into production, first thing, get the boundaries sorted. Now you have reproducible results without having to compromise on the quality, because still LLM is a black box. The outcomes that we generate are very much dependent on what it has been fed. If the food given to the LLMs are not great, whatever you get out of that LLM is not going to be great either. So not all LLMs are good for all purposes. Like I was experimenting with DeepSeek. It was amazing with translation and something which required responsive and attributes, while Claude is very fancy with all coding stuff, especially JavaScript, which I don't understand much. But it's fun. It's fun to play around with these technologies and see what works best, and it can be only done when it's at the abstraction level, because it gives you room to play around, to experiment. Once it goes into the core, your possibilities of exploration nullifies. So think LLM as an abstraction and not as a core principle. All this comes together, what I've been talking about, design first thinking, open source and stuff. I developed this framework. It could be accessible on GitHub. Feel free to check it out. Also, love to have new contributors onboarded onto the platform. This has an interesting design philosophy embedded in them, and what it gives you an opportunity to explore is how to think tools, how all this design thinking could be stitched together in one single open source project. And today probably it has about 9,000 to 10,000 clones already, and I work with a lot of organizations who are actively trying to understand how to do design first open source data solutions, and not just data solutions. And there is a stark difference when you start thinking about data. Take a look, feel free to shoot any questions, create an issue, let me know how you feel about it, and yeah, let's build. Now I talked about abstraction. Not all of us could interact with data journey because it's more on the technical side. So this Lean Launch Mate is a byproduct of data journey, which is available at beta right now for non-technical users and founders who want to do design first thinking but just don't know where to start, where to begin. And if you like to get on the beta list, feel free to reach out, give me a message, and I'll give you a solution, like a credential that you can log in, experiment, and seek feedback also in the process. Well, thank you. That's my email address. Shoot me questions or queries or anything that you have on your mind. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, first let us thank the speaker. Yeah, as mentioned, we have ample time, 7 minutes for questions.
As usual, either you understood everything or nothing. And it's fair if there are things that you're still processing and would like to come up with more questions at the end of the day, it takes time. That's completely fine. And could reach out. I will be around here, happy to take questions. Or this session was all about like actively start to think design. And if I could like impart a percentage of it today in all of your minds, my job is done.
Last chance.
Last chance.
For questions now. Well, of course, later we have the speaker is around here for, I'm sure, for the next 2 days. Well then, thanks again.